Hey folks, fresh off a perfect road trip and a big contract for Willie. We're going to discuss it and break it all down for you right here on the OZone.
You're in the offensive zone, your place for Leafs hockey.
Hey folks, welcome to the OZone. That's Coach. We love you, KD. I'm the Devo. We're here to talk all things Leafs. I'm coming to you from a very soaking wet 6, the HQ of the OZ. Coach, where are you at?
Devo, I'm in London. You're complaining about rain? I get it every day. Yeah, international headquarters in London.
Yeah. Folks, remember, hit subscribe, ring the bell, never miss any content. We need you to do that. Also, like and share the video. I know some of you are doing that, and that's great. Leave a comment. That always helps. We'll address it. We always bring it up in the OZone when it comes in. Gosh, this up and down, back and forth, crazy season. It's hard to get a handle on this team. They had one heck of a good road trip, though. Good goaltending. Solid defensive effort all round. Overall, what's your take on the squad right now, Coach?
Yeah, hey, that road trip was a terrific win against the Kings. That's a solid team. To go out there and the first night out, beat the Kings was awesome. And then, surprisingly for our Leafs, they took care of business against bad teams. That almost never happens. So, it was simply what is expected to happen. Adds up to a really good trip. I think part of that is the team. They had a few days to the finishing up before they went on the trip. I think they made a conscious effort to tighten up from the forwards back to the D because of the goaltending situation. Super fragile, right? We talked last time about Martin Jones. Having NHL experience, but he was an 8-something save percentage last year, and that's your stud. You don't even want to play the kid, so they had to tighten up, and they did. And sometimes that can really focus you. Anybody who's played beer league hockey understands when you don't have a keeper, you got to rally the troops. So yeah, they're inconsistent. Look, we knew that in November. They were getting points when they really didn't deserve it, right? Pulling up, wins, overtime wins, shootout wins, scoring with 6 men on to get a point. So they weren't quite as good as that streak. They weren't as bad as this last streak, I think. So they're evening out. I mean, what are they? 5-4-1 in their last 10. I think they're a little better than that. But 3 in a row is a great start with a good shot against the Sharks to extend that.
Yeah, I agree with really the jewel of that trip was that Kings wing. That team is stacked up pretty well against to play the Leafs tough. They're tough down the middle. They play stout, hard defensive hockey, and that's a good matchup against Toronto generally. We've been hard on Keefe of late, Coach, due mostly to the inconsistent play. A lot of the bench minors that we've seen, we've been critical of. We were very critical of him sending a message or using David Kampf as the message of accountability, and also some of the line assembly. I guess I saw many people furious about starting Jones both games. I know it's a small sample size, but honestly, it all seems to have worked out in the short term. And the effort was clearly there in the last 3 games. So what's your take on that?
Devo, this is reason number 19 why I love you. You keep me accountable. I'm a critic of Keefe. I think he should have been gone long ago. I'm not as vocal about it just because I'm getting old and tired and crotchety, and I'm most of the day I'm out there yelling at the kids to get off my lawn, so I don't have the energy here. But you're right. Going to give credit where credit is due. Part of that thing I just said about tightening up, that's a conscious effort by the coaching staff, to focus on that, to rally the troops around it. He has done a good job. And look, in terms of the goaltending situation, we also talked last time. Remember, we said Martin Brodeur would laugh at the suggestion that he can't play it back-to-back. He played every game. He played 70 games a year.
Yeah.
So, of course, it can be done. And, fair point by Keefe in that decision was they played so well against the Kings, he actually wasn't tested that much. Now, if he's got to go save 50 or something, he probably doesn't play that next game. So I don't mind it. I don't mind him playing back-to-back. And then he had, a couple days for the Sharks, now like 3 or 4 days there now to play this home game. I don't mind it. However, I also don't subscribe to the theory that we're going to ruin this kid Hildeby if he gets in a game. Don't even call him up. And if you call him up, for goodness sake, don't use him because his confidence is going to be shattered. I don't subscribe to that at all. I'd like to see him. I'd like to see him in a game. The back-to-back would have been a great time to do it. But, he's going to be up. I think they said mid-February for Joseph Wall. I think he's up for a while. Like I don't think it's reasonable to expect Samsonov snaps his fingers and he's back.
Oh, absolutely
to the Ilya
not.
that I loved last year.
Yeah.
So I hope he gets in. I'd like to see him. I'd like to see what he's got. I don't watch the Marlies, so I'd like to see him.
Yeah, and I think the Leafs have another back-to-back. They have a rare Sunday game, I think, and it looks like Hildeby's probably going to be there. So, yeah, that's a good point. I don't think you can ruin the kid by playing him. That's ridiculous. Coach, we got to hit it. This is kind of big news. It might even be old news at this point. Everyone already had the number 4 days before they made the announcement. But anyways, Coach Nylander, 8 years locked up. Next year we get Matthews, Nylander's pay going up. But I guess the cap goes up a little bit too. It's also Marner and Tavares' final year of their respective contracts. Marner is going to want 12. Guaranteed. But maybe JT may take a hometown discount after all, or if not, who knows? But still, next year it seems like it's going to be a bit of a squeeze on this team. What do you think? What do you think this is going to mean?
Yeah, it definitely will mean a squeeze for sure. And if Marner wants 12 being Mitch, what do you think his dad Paul Marner wants? I have to send my brother and his dog back up to Thornhill on the regular, calm them down a bit. But it came out, it snuck out, whether it's Nick Kyprios or Elliot Friedman or whoever. But 11.5 was the number. You remember, you, me, KD, we got together for a few podcasts over the summer, and Nylander had to be, a topic. Didn't sign July 1st. So what should the number be? And we had it where if it was doubled, if it started with a 10, it was too much.
Yeah.
And we were right then. And he got 11.5, and I think they're right now too. So it's so tricky, right? You'd love to be able to pay him a little bit better maybe than what you think. It would be a steal to have anything to start with a 10 now. It would have been, we would have said at the time, it's overpaying. Who knew that he'd have 37 games of the best hockey of his career and be on pace for 140 points and all that? I can see both sides of it, right? Yes, the club is hamstrung. It's going to be even tighter to go find the Buntings and the Bertuzzis and that kind of thing next year. There's so little money. Yeah. And let's face it, we also, if it's Jones or somebody else, we need a veteran presence to play with Wall. But I also think that he is playing like that kind of contract, and he's got good pedigree. He is playing to that level right now.
For sure.
I actually am not too worried about him dropping off for the next 3, 4, 5 years of this. I think it's a decent deal. But isn't it just so Leafs that we catch this guy at his absolute apex, and that's when we decide to pay him? It's just, we can't win. We can't. When are we going to get a bargain contract other than Gio? I guess the answer is that. The answer is it'll be Tavares. So Tavares is he's got 11 sheets next year. and then he's going to do a Geo type contract. He will.
Hope
He's not
so.
going to want to leave, and he's going to want to help the club out and get depth and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So, I think the real question here is this, Devo. Look, you've been critical of the club's depth. The club's depth is based on the fact that you're paying 4 or 5 guys so much money.
Yeah.
That actually now gets worse starting next year. So what would you do? Would you move Marner and use that to augment, to beef up your depth? Or would you try and sign him? And you're signing him. I don't think he's taking something that starts with 11. I think you're right. I don't know. What do you do? It's a really difficult choice.
Yeah, it is tough. If you do try to re-sign him, I would try to do it this offseason because this is clearly the dip year for him. I don't know if he'd want to do that. But if you could negotiate Tavares out, get another 3 years out of him at a $5 million hometown discount, and then turn to Marner and say, do you want to win a cup? Because this guy does. And maybe you have something to go on by there.
Yeah, the timing is a little off for that, but yes, I mean, take this guy's example. You're a hometown guy; he's a hometown guy. I don't know if his dad would let him do that.
The crazy thing here with all of this is, I don't think he can move Marner. He's not going to allow himself to be traded anywhere. So you have to risk putting him out in the open market if you don't re-sign him during the season. You run the risk of him running up 118 points next year, and then you got to pay him, however many,
Yeah. Well, we can't what happens in the playoffs, right?
Yep.
It's such an X factor. Do they have a really long run and say we're almost there, or even better, which we're not even going to talk about? I'm not jinxing that.
Yeah.
But or do they flame out? If they flame out, finally. For God's sake, finally, you have to change the core. And he's the only guy you can change, right?
It's 100%.
But if it's a nice long run, maybe you say, let's run this core 5 back, pick away at the pieces. We get cheap goaltending. Maybe we take another run, sort of like that. Yeah, it's so dependent on the spring that it's really difficult to predict. But, I mean, if you're going to move a core piece now, remember we were talking about who do you trade? Is it Marner? Is it Nylander? Now there's only one guy. Nylander's here for the duration.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think he can move Marner. He's got no.
I wonder. Yeah, we got to look into. I suppose you can't, or you go to him and say, "Look, we're not gonna sign you.
We're gonna waive you.
Why don't we'll move you somewhere where you can go and go. That way, you get 8 years out of the team you pick that will move you to. Maybe that works.
A sign and trade.
By the way, Devo.
Yeah.
Do we agree 11.5 is like the most that Nylander was ever going to get? Okay, it's a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, he also gets a nice $69 million of that as a signing bonus.
Yep.
And over the years, and he's got a full no move. So, do you understand what negotiate means? Like, both sides are supposed to give. What did he give? Unbelievable job by his agent. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's true. It's absolutely true. We have to talk about it because we do every episode. And I like to bring it up. I know it's a thorn in your side too. Because the way this team is constructed, the way that it's built, we have a problem on the back end. Not only do we have significant issues with goalie depth, which again reared its head this year. This is the third year in a row, really, that we've kind of gone into January, February with big call-ups from the Marlies and being a little bit panicked. But also the Leafs are constructed in such a way that they're not actually that good. People might like the players we have. Gio, Brody, they're fan favorites for sure. They do a lot for the team, but there's no upside there. And I'm not so sure either of those guys is as good as they were last year. Both of them have a left-handed stick, despite the fact that Brody performs fairly well on the right side. In Riley's career, and he's certainly a bright side point of the back end.
Yes.
He's had a great year so far. I think we can both agree with that. But he's had zero help in terms of partners. I mean, Brody has been by far
Yeah.
his best partner, playing on his off wing. And when you look at the plugs that the Leafs leadership has thrown in the last couple of years on the right side, Labushkin, Shen, these are not 25-minute a night guys. And yet both those guys played top line minutes when they came to Toronto on the right-hand side because they have a right-hand stick and they're big and they do something that no one else on the team can do. Will we ever find ourselves not talking about this, and will we ever go and get a reasonable, decent right-hand defenseman to help Morgan out? Is that ever going to happen?
It's crazy you mentioned those guys. Think about this: other partners of his, Ron Hainsey, Roman Polak, Nikita Zaitsev. It's as if the Leafs said, "Who's the slowest guy in the league right now?
Yeah,
let's put him with Riley." You know what? Brody's playing with Riley last year. It's going okay. Is there anybody slow? Hey, Luke Schen's pretty slow. Let's move for him. And Shen was actually pretty good with him. Yeah, that's awful.
And I just on that point alone, that's another reason why I'm going to say it's an indictment on Liljegren, because he would be playing with Riley if he was truly trusted and a solid defender. And the fact that he's not, he's the only right-handed defenseman we have, I think.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, he's the only one with a right curve. That's right. Yeah, no, that's a fair point. I mean, look, Riley and Brody have been pretty good this year. And the fact that they may not be quite as good as in previous years is all Brody. I agree with you there. Brody, I'm not as worried about him having the left shot. If you think about Gio and his years in Calgary when he won the Norris, yep. Brody's his partner. Brody was playing on that side. So
how long ago was that?
Not too worried about that. I am worried a bit about Brody. Like he is declining. So fair point. I think it has improved somewhat, and I think we saw some of that as part of this last road trip. And it really coincides with Gio coming back. Gio's been back for 5 games. They lost the first 2, but he didn't play very big minutes.
Yeah.
And then he's taken a big role now, last 3 games, playing beside Liljegren. Mm-hmm. Yes, Liljegren would be better, and we'd all be better if he could play on that top pair and they could play big minutes. But having him as with Gio in a defensive role isn't that bad. It's not too bad. Simon Benoit is who he is. And Jake McCabe is actually having a good year. He started out awful, remember? Awful. And then he got hurt. And then he's actually having a good year. And good for him. He's being a team guy. He's playing on his offside. It's not great. But it's difficult to say that you're going to succeed in the playoffs with this. I do think there's a move to be made. I do think, Treliving from the very first time he talked about his philosophy, he likes big, useful defensemen. I think he's going to make a move at the trade deadline. However, the Nylander contract changes that a little bit because ideally you wouldn't just get a rental. You get a guy with some term. Remember, that's what they did with Jake McCabe, right? They got him for that plus 2 years. And I don't know if you could do that because they're so tight next year. Maybe it's got to be a rental. I know we're going to be gearing up to the trade deadline and stuff. We'll take a look at that in more detail. But it may change your focus. Now, maybe you don't have to give up as many assets that way. But, I think as good as he's been defensively, Simon Benoit is the guy you upgrade. I'd be happy with him in the playoffs as a 7. Yeah. If you had 6 solid guys. And the guy you get really should play the right side.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll see. We'll see, won't we? I've actually really liked his play. You and I have commented on that of late. He still handles the puck like a hand grenade. You see that a lot from young physical guys.
I suppose. I mean, I do say I think he's the 7 if you add a guy, but maybe it's Gio. Maybe I think I'm counting on Gio being rejuvenated because he missed a month. And he was so tired last year. Like, he was not good in the playoffs. I'm hoping he'll be better. Maybe he isn't. I don't mind Benoit. He's big, like you said. He's physical. He can play playoff hockey. It's not so bad.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Also, another interesting point. I guess we'll see a puck drop, but Nick Robertson might draw in tonight because I think the flu bug is going around. So the Lions
running out of chances, isn't he, Diva?
Yeah,
I would say this. Nick, step up.
I would say this is it, right? This is the last chance, right? So if he does play, good luck. By the time we air this, we'll know the answer. Anyways, there you have it, folks. Everything you need to know about the Leafs right here on the OZone.